ago, but he was making sense even back then. Here we go. Sheikh Imran Hosein was explaining the Holy Land back in 2013. Let's have a listen to what he was saying all those years ago. Does it make more sense now with what we've seen in the recent years? Let's have a listen.
Tonight we want to attempt something that we've not done before. Not anywhere else in the world and not in Australia. For the first time we attempt it tonight. We attempt to define the Holy Land. What is the geographical limit of the Holy Land as located in the Quran and the Sunnah? Because we want to understand why is it that Mr. Bush wants to attack Iraq? Why? Why is it that the state of Israel is so hungry to expand territorially? Why? He has taken Ibrahim alayhi salam on a journey from Ur, which is in Babylon, which is close to the mouth of the Euphrates River, where the Euphrates River reaches the sea.
So Babylon is modern day Iraq, Ur, the land of Ur. So if you believe that you are a descendant of Abraham and the Holy Land is your ancestral homeland, your great-grandfather Ibrahim alayhi salam came from Iraq, not Palestine. Abraham was from Iraq. Let's just bear that in mind as we go through this. Oh, we might have to restart. Oh, sorry. My apologies. We're trying to get Sheikh Imran Hosein footage. This is archive footage. I believe he originally gave this speech in 2013. Give me a moment. We'll be right back. Sorry guys, I think it's crashed my operating system. We're trying to watch Sheikh Imran Hosein, but I think we've crashed the phone. I could try and get it up on the other one. Hold on, here we go. Alright. Just give me a moment. Why is it not coming up? In the talk, he mentions that the Holy Land stretches from Babylon and the Euphrates, the river in Iraq, to the river Nile in Egypt, and that everything between those two rivers is considered the Holy Land. I don't know what you consider the Holy Land. It depends on your religion. The Muslims believe that Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam was in Mecca, and he built the Kaaba with his son. He was born in Iraq, and he would have ended up at some point in the Holy Land, what we call Israel or Palestine. But where do you draw the line? What is holy to you? I'm very sorry if we don't get the talk up here. I suppose I could play it on another phone. Let's just try one more time. Close everything down. Hopefully this is going to work. I'm in Okay, I've got some funny comments coming in. Thanks for that. All right, let's give this a try. Gonna play it one more time. Hold on, there is an activate check. Okay. Create a new. Okay. Oh no. I'm gonna have to end this one. We're gonna start it again and see if it works. Okay. God willing. Hopefully this time we'll be able to hear something. Shaking on. Where's everyone watching from? I've got people in many different countries. Benny Kern Sidif. Is that an Irish name? Okay, give it a try. Second time of asking. Sheikh Imran Hosein made this speech in 2013. How relevant is it now?
Tonight we want to attempt something that we've not done before. Not anywhere else in the world and not in Australia. For the first time we attempt it tonight. We attempt to define the Holy Land. What is the geographical limit of the Holy Land as located in the Quran and the Sunnah? Because we want to understand why is it that Mr. Bush wants to attack Iraq? Why? Why is it that the state of Israel is so hungry to expand territorially? Why? He has taken Ibrahim alayhi salam on a journey from Ur, which is in Babylon, which is close to the mouth of the Euphrates River, where the Euphrates River reaches the sea. And he travels with his family to the Holy Land. But notice the journey. Between the beginning of the journey over here in what is today Iraq, and the end of the journey in what today is called Palestine, between these two areas is a vast desert area. Today you can fly easily. Today you can get into your motor car, and once your tank has gas, you can drive over easily. But if you were traveling with a family with you, and you were using animals, you would need to stop on the way so many times. You need places to sleep, you would need food to eat, you need water to drink. And so travelers would seldom, if ever, attempt to travel directly across the desert from Iraq to Palestine. What Ibrahim alayhi salam did, and the Jews themselves give us this information, is that he traveled northwest along the rivers where there was water and where there were people living and therefore food. Traveled northwest above the desert until he came to the north of Syria, south of Turkey. And when he reached there, then he headed southwest, down into Palestine. In this way, he was able to skirt the desert. When he stopped, this was the Holy Land. And so we know that the Holy Land did not extend all the way to Iraq, to the river Euphrates, because he was already living there. And he had to leave there and travel a long journey and cross the desert from the north. The desert could not comprise the Holy Land. And so the Holy Land has to be on the western side of the desert which separates Iraq from Palestine. So we now have the geographical limits of the Holy Land on its eastern frontier. What are the geographical limits of the Holy Land on its western frontier? To the south is the sea. Musa alayhi salam is raised in a part of Egypt. And tonight we're going to learn which part of Egypt. And he takes Banu Israel across the sea. The river Nile is to the back, the Red Sea is to the front, and he crosses the Red Sea. وَإِذْ فَرَقْنَا بِكُمُ الْبَحْرَ. This is the Red Sea. And then he crosses into Sinai. Not the hospital in Manhattan. No, the desert. And when he crosses into Sinai, then of course he goes up the mountain, Mount Sinai. The Torah is revealed, and he comes down with the stone tablets. And then there occurred the incident with the brother Harun alayhi salam, etc. After that, while they are still in Sinai, now he says, يَا قَوْمِ ادْخُلُوا الْأَرْضَ الْمُقَدَّسَةَ الَّتِي كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ. Oh my people, come on, let us enter the Holy Land. So they're not yet in the Holy Land. Let us enter the Holy Land which Allah gave to you. And so, the western limits of the Holy Land has to be Sinai. Sinai is not a part of the Holy Land. In the Torah, there's a strange thing. It says that this book was written by Musa alayhi salam. That's what it says. But at the end of Genesis, I think Genesis, it says that Musa alayhi salam died and he was buried in Sinai and nobody knows where his grave is. Strange, if he was writing the book. If he was writing the book, how did he write this? That I died and I was buried in Sinai and nobody knows where my grave is. It looks now very clear that there were others who were involved in writing other than Musa alayhi salam, who is now dead. In Sahih Bukhari, we have the same thing repeated. That Musa alayhi salam, when the time of death came, he asked Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for permission to enter the Holy Land, but he was not given permission. He could only see the Holy Land. So he climbed up the mountain, and from the top of that mountain he was able to see the Holy Land. And then after that he died without being able to enter the Holy Land. And then the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ says, I know where he is buried. Yes, I know. The Jews don't know, but I know. I can see his grave now by the side of the red hill. I can see his grave. He's not seeing with these eyes of us. He's seeing with these eyes internally. So Musa alayhi salam is buried in Sinai without being able to enter into the Holy Land, and so Sinai does not constitute a part of the Holy Land. So we've now defined the eastern borders and the western borders, limiting it. To the north, we don't have, maybe tomorrow somebody might be able to bring some evidence to me, which will give us a geographical limit to the north. But at least it couldn't be north of when Ibrahim alayhi salam turned southwards to come down to the Holy Land. It has to be somewhere between the northern point of his journey and his destination when he arrived in Palestine. Somewhere in between is the northern limit. Clearly, the Sea of Galilee has to form a part of it because of the hadith of Gog and Magog. This then would be the geographical boundaries of the Holy Land as given in the Quran. One more ayah remains, which clearly identifies the heart of the Holy Land. So around this heart you have to look for the periphery, which is the heart. Which is the heart? Which is the heart? Subhanalladhi. Subhanalladhi asra bi'abdihi layla min al-masjid al-haram ila al-masjid al-aqsa alladhi barakna hawla. Barakna hawla. And so ila akhir al-ayah. And so where the masjid was located in Jerusalem is the heart of the Holy Land. And so Jerusalem, the city, is the heart of the Holy Land. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sometimes, instead of referring to the Holy Land, he refers to the city. The heart and the center of the Holy Land is Jerusalem. Now then, when we go to the Torah, we find something strange, which explains why Mr. Bush wants to attack Iraq on behalf of Israel, of course. The Torah tells us that the Holy Land extends from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates. Why the river of Egypt? Why not the whole of Egypt? Why the river Euphrates? Why not beyond? How did they come to the conclusion that this is the Holy Land? In consequence of which, the state of Israel now declares of itself that it has a mission, a sacred mission, to expand until it encompasses this entire area, from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates.
It was a bit of a conspiracy theory, the idea that Israel has intentions to expand from the river Nile in Egypt to the Euphrates in Iraq. But I think there are some hardliners within the Zionist movement that do acknowledge Greater Israel. It seems to be emerging. I've even seen badges on uniforms with what appears to look like a map with two rivers on there. People used to allege that the two blue lines on the flag represent the two rivers, although I think officially that is denied, and it's actually just the blue stripes on the traditional garments that they wear. So I don't know. The initial Zionist movement that wanted to create a homeland in Palestine, you could see the emblem of the Urgan. It showed a map of the whole of Palestine and Transjordan, which became Jordan, because that was the mandate, the British mandate. So certainly there was a movement that was hoping to have the entirety of the British mandate of Palestine as a state or a homeland. What are the borders? It's a very difficult question, and I've never really had a decent answer. You can talk about the 67 borders, you can talk about the occupied territories in addition to the 67 borders. You've got the Golan as well, which Trump proudly says, we gave them the Golan, we gave them. Is that part of Israel? Most of the people that live there don't consider themselves Israelis, but the Israeli state considers it part of their territory.
Understand the river of Egypt. We have to go to that time when Banu Israel went to Egypt. Yusuf alayhi salam. And they lived in Egypt for more than 400 years. However, something happened in Egypt in consequence of which they were enslaved. I would love to explain that to you, but it'll take half an hour. I can't take half an hour on that. But if you invite me to come back to lecture on the subject Ashura in the Quran, then you get that whole story. They were enslaved in Egypt. And after enslavement in Egypt for a certain period of time, the pharaohs were using them for labor. The Egyptian army would always go out of Egypt and attack in order to get slaves. They needed a lot of slave labor for these huge projects of construction in which they were engaged. You couldn't build the pyramids with 10 workmen. No, you needed 100,000 men working for you and pay them nothing. So you needed slaves. And so you had a vast amount of slaves in Egypt. And Banu Israel, when they were enslaved, were also part of this labor force. And so they were dispersed all around Egypt, wherever there were construction projects. In the pyramids, so you have some of Banu Israel up there, but then you have Aswan and Luxor. And you have the city of Ramesses and so on. So Banu Israel are scattered all over Egypt. But when the time came for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to take them out of Egypt, and this is very good strategy, that Banu Israel, who are scattered all over Egypt, must now leave wherever they are in Egypt and head for Misr. And so Misr couldn't be the whole of Egypt. No. In fact, Misr is that part of Egypt which is located between the Red Sea and the River Nile.
That's interesting. So in Arabic, Egypt is referred to as Misr, but the Sheikh is saying that Misr is actually a smaller part of Egypt and not the entirety. It's the first time I've heard that.
And which is known as the Eastern Delta. It was in that area that a non-Egyptian people ruled at that time when Yusuf alayhi salam came. They were not Egyptians, they were Hyksos. And so Misr is where Banu Israel were established by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the Eastern Delta, between the River Nile and the Red Sea. And therefore they declare, since Allah ordained that they should be brought to this land, this means it is a part of the Holy Land.
Okay.
And so the Holy Land extends from the river of Egypt, meaning the River Nile. Well, then why the River Euphrates? The answer is that after Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala asked them to enter, when Musa alayhi salam asked them to enter into the Holy Land which Allah gave to you, this there in Surah Al-Ma'idah, Surah Al-Ma'idah, يَا قَوْمِ ادْخُلُوا الْأَرْضَ الْمُقَدَّسَةَ الَّتِي كَتَبَ اللَّهُ لَكُمْ إِلَى آخِرِ الْآيَةِ. They said, we're not going into this land because there's a powerful people in the land. It's going to be a big fight. We're not fighting you and your Lord. Both of you go and fight. So Allah punished them by barring banning their entry into the Holy Land for how long? 40 years. 40 years. After 40 years in the wilderness of Sinai, then they were allowed to enter in the Holy Land, and they took control of the Holy Land. And then, of course, the state of Israel was established by Nabi Dawood alayhi salam, and expanded in the time of Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam, and it became the ruling state in the world. And I've asked you to go to the Quran and look at the story of Sulaiman alayhi salam and the Queen of Sheba. And in that story you'll see implicit there that the Israel of Sulaiman alayhi salam was the ruling state in the world. And this was the golden age. This was the golden age of the Jews. And then, after the death of Sulaiman alayhi salam, there was the internal conflict in which the Torah was rewritten many times. And tonight I had intended to take you through all of that material, showing you all the changes made in the Torah which are strategically relevant to understanding the world today. But we don't have the time for that tonight. You're going to have to go to my book, The Religion of Abraham and the State of Israel, a view from the Quran, and all of that material there is in that book, and that book is outside. After they had made all the changes in the Torah, they're now committing acts of zulm. وَمَنْ أَظْلَمُ مِمَّنِ افْتَرَى عَلَى اللَّهِ الْكَذِبَ. This is the greatest act of zulm, to change the word of Allah with your own hands and declare it is the word of Allah. And so now they are expelled from the Holy Land, an army coming from Babylon. The army destroyed the state of Israel and destroyed the masjid, and now they're taken into Babylon as slaves. But they lived in Babylon for almost 100 years. And because prophets of Allah came to them, many prophets of Allah came to them while they were in Babylon. Many. During those 100 years. And because the divine promise was communicated to them while they were in Babylon. Which promise? The promise which came with the prophet Isaiah, that Allah was going to raise a prophet who would be their prophet, who would be known as Al-Masih, the Messiah, and who, when he comes, would rule the world from the throne of Dawood alayhi salam. The throne of Dawood alayhi salam means the state of Israel. It means Jerusalem. Who would rule the world from Jerusalem with a rule which would be eternal. Eternal meaning that there's nothing to replace it. This promise was communicated to them while they were in Babylon during that 100 years. So they interpreted that Babylon must be a part of the Holy Land. Nothing to do with Ibrahim alayhi salam being born there, but rather to the fact that they lived for 100 years there and prophets of Allah came to them. And so someone rewrote the Torah and put into the Torah that the Holy Land extends from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates. That is how we now have this awesome moment in history when the state of Israel is about to wage a big war which will witness a dramatic expansion in its territory, incrementally perhaps, until it eventually takes control of this entire area from the river of Egypt to the river Euphrates.
So, is that the plan? The Sheikh is arguing that this is a misconception, a wrong idea of what should constitute the Holy Land, and if there is an ambition to control that region, it is mistaken, it's a deception. But what is the Holy Land? If you believe in Prophet Abraham and you believe that he built the Kaaba in Mecca, do you consider that the Holy Land, the holiest spot on the earth for Muslims, we are told, is Mecca, the holiest city, followed by Medina, and followed by Masjid al-Aqsa in the Holy Land. But the Sheikh is acknowledging that this region around Masjid al-Aqsa, Bayt al-Maqdis, that this is the Holy Land, and that the genuine state of Israel, holy Israel, as led by Nabi Dawood, this was a genuine holy land. It's a quote that some of the Zionists like to mention. The Quran does say that God instructed the Israelite people to go into this land and to dwell there. That's not in question. What we do question is, are the people there now living according to God's will? Are they the Israelite people that were being talked about? And is it a legitimate claim now? Did Allah deceive everybody, meaning the Romans, Jews, and apostles, that Jesus actually wasn't crucified but made to look like it happened? Yes or no? Look, I'm not a scholar, Diva. I would say in the book it says that he was not crucified, but it was made to appear so. So anyone that believed that it was deceived. It was made to appear as if what actually happened and what really what it looked like happened and what really happened were different. And even from the Christian perspective, some people thought that Jesus was dead. In reality, he was not, or he was for a time and he came back to life, if that's your belief. Question from Diva, then why didn't Allah at the minimum tell the apostles who wrote down the Injil of the actual truth? Why deceive everybody for over 600 years? Very good question. And you were saying the apostles wrote down the Injil. There's many different versions of what the apostles or who wrote down what. It's a very good question. Why would the truth not be revealed for 600 years? That was God's will. As according to the book, what seemed to happen was not what actually happened. Why deceive everybody for 600 years? Well, some people are still deceived, then you could say, if they have not realized. When the false Christ comes, the Antichrist, remember anti means false, many people will be deceived. Try not to be. I don't know, I'm not a scholar, I just find it a fascinating topic to talk about, and I'm glad to share some of the Sheikh footage and wisdom on here. I know a lot of people have followed this channel because of the content we've put out from Sheikh Imran Hosein, and God willing we'll get a chance to ask him some of these questions. All right, folks, I'm going to go before I cough myself to death. Diva says, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John have been the same since written in the 1st century. In Muhammad's time, we have thousands of manuscripts. Yes, but there's also the Gospel of Barnabas, the Gospel of Thomas, and Matthew, Mark, Luke and John contradict each other in some parts. But if it's your belief and you believe in it, I completely respect your belief. I don't want to say that someone is better than another because of what they believe. It's okay. It's okay to disagree. It's okay to have different beliefs. Okay, and you're all welcome here, whatever you believe. And Risk is saying it's all in God's time. That's for sure. That's for sure. All right, folks. Really appreciate you chatting to me. Diva's saying those were rejected. What is this contradiction? Well, for example, what happened to Judas after he betrayed Jesus? There's differing accounts of how he ended up. But look, I don't want to pick holes in people's beliefs, okay? And I think we should not dwell on our differences. All right, guys, I really appreciate you chatting to me. It's been Lessons for Life. Do it all again soon. We were here. We are gone. Laters. And those of you watching on Sarah Dardasha, thank you very much. Subscribe and hopefully we'll do more like this.